We are used to getting daily updates on modern conflicts, but history is full of wars that lasted long enough to span several generations. When we look at these long timelines, we find that the years recorded on paper and the days spent actually fighting are often two very different things. We can track this using a chronological timeline starting in 711 AD. This diagram maps 5 record-breaking conflicts that redefined what it meant to live through a war. To understand the true impact of these events, we have to look past the textbook dates and see the actual experience of the people trapped inside them. Our first stop is the Iberian Peninsula at the start of the 8th century, where we find the longest war in recorded history. This is the Reconquista. It was a struggle for territory between Christian kingdoms in Spain and Muslim states that lasted 781 years. This wasn't 8 centuries of constant battle. Instead, the maps show a slow push and pull, with borders inching south as territorial control shifted over several hundred years. Jumping forward on the timeline to 1337, we find another massive conflict, the 100 Years' War between England and France. The name is a bit of an understatement. The war actually lasted 116 years. It was sustained by a long-running dispute over who should sit on the French throne. The human cost reached up to 3.3 million casualties. Much of this loss came from burned farmlands and the spread of the bubonic plague, which devastated the population alongside the fighting. These medieval wars persisted for lifetimes because they were fought in seasonal phases, eventually becoming a permanent part of the social structure. In 1651, we see a much more unusual conflict that took place far away from the battlefields of continental Europe. This was a war between the Netherlands and the Isles of Scilly, a small group of islands just off the coast of England. Even though it officially lasted 335 years, the two sides never engaged in a single day of combat and recorded 0 casualties. The state of war only existed because officials forgot to sign a peace treaty after the English Civil War ended. The conflict remained active on paper for over 3 centuries until it was finally settled in 1986. In this instance, the record-breaking duration was the result of a multi-century bureaucratic oversight. Moving into the mid-20th century, the pace and intensity of conflict changed significantly. The Vietnam War lasted 20 years, beginning in 1955 and involving a massive deployment of U.S. forces. Iron weapons and constant combat led to staggering losses. Up to 3.4 million people died in just 2 decades of fighting. A similar timeline appeared in 2001 with the start of the 20-year war in Afghanistan between the United States and the Taliban. This was a 2-decade insurgency. Unlike the medieval wars of the caste, this conflict was defined by a constant, low-level struggle without fixed front lines. Modern logistics allowed for continuous fighting, condensing the level of devastation that once took centuries into just 2 traumatic decades. The timeline reveals a stark contrast. The Reconquista spans 781 years, and the Scilly War lasted 335 years on paper. Compare this to the 116-year 100 Years' War, or the intensely concentrated 20-year modern conflicts in Vietnam and Afghanistan. These eras show that people experienced war in vastly different ways, from a seasonal part of life to a concentrated daily struggle for survival. The weight of a war is found in the daily reality of those fighting it, regardless of how many years pass before a treaty is signed.